mic doesn't do too much harm. Hope you guys had a nice summer vacation, or you still have it, right? Still, until like September or something? Okay, well, cool. Welcome back to another exciting lecture. I'm kind of refreshed from the summer. We got to do a little bit of drumming, so good to know, right? Could be the mic, could be me. No, it's the mic. Oh, if I hold this, then it's not that bad. All right. So every time we gather, I always like to start with like the purpose, right? Like, why do you guys even sit here? Why do we sit here listening to me talk about random stuff that you may or might not get, right? Think about this, right? And it's like up to you guys, like, and it's not just you guys, but like everybody else who like listens to the content that's online. It's like, why bother, right? What's the point of this entire exercise? Well, especially for you guys, since you're like pretty young, like the idea of the purpose is so you guys get like a fundamental grasp of like what is Buddhism, right? Because if your friends ask you like, hey, what's Buddhism? Can you answer them in a like simple 2 sentences what Buddhism is, right? Maybe, maybe not. It's so that you know what is Buddhism, like why you're here in the first place, like why are you in this religion, right? It's like it's designed to ask you, or it's designed to make you question what you already know. And ultimately, like the more you sit through these little content, think about it like this, right? Imagine you versus like somebody else who doesn't sit through this content at all. Like as time goes on, right? It's going to be 2 different paths. You guys will develop a little bit more wisdom. Was the person who, same age, same religion, but don't sit here and don't listen to any lecture about Buddhism. Over time, you begin to become more wiser, right? And you begin to observe life in a different viewpoint. And that's the point of this lecture. It also like dawns on me that like sometimes when I'm explaining these things, the concepts are not easy. Like I think you gotta be like somewhat mature to be able to understand this concept. Like for example, like, one of the big concepts that we're talking about today is this big word called impermanence. Now, if you're an adult, you know what this word means, impermanence. Impermanence, well, I mean, we'll go through it, but anyway, I'll come back to this idea. But like I'm just saying, like sometimes the concepts are really high level and difficult, and that's why I can imagine like some of you guys like, or whoever else is watching is like really young, like they're thinking like talking, and then it's hard for them to absorb. Okay, so I mean, I think you can also like feel free to ask questions, right? If you don't know a concept or if I'm being unclear. Also, like Albert Einstein once said, like if you can't explain the concept simply, you don't understand it well enough. So if I'm not doing my job of explaining something simply enough, then just ask me. Then I'll probably try to circle back again. All right. So the topic for today is called the 3 Dharma seals, but because of like we only have like 25 minutes left, I'm only going to go on to the 2 of the 3 Dharma seals, and hopefully next time I'll dive into the other one. But the 3 are impermanence, interconnectedness, or they call it non-self, and also lastly nirvana. Okay. So when I was like thinking about like how to think about like lectures in general, right? I thought about this question like about like doing this like mental exercise, and it's fascinating because you guys know that there's like lots and lots of religions in this world, right? There's like Judaism, Islam, Christianity, and a whole bunch of other outside of those major religions. My question then is like, how do we know that like all these thoughts and philosophies of Buddhism are even true? All the things that I'm talking about, all the things that come from like the Buddha, how do we even know that it's true to begin with? And then I thought about this like really interesting like mental exercise that you can do every time I like tell you something. And it's this idea of thinking in reverse, or in the negative sense, right? So the first basic tenet of this Dharma seal is called impermanence. So what does impermanence mean? Well, everything, according to the Buddha, is impermanent. That means they don't stay there forever, right? So these flowers, this table, a mountain, our bodies, our feelings, our thoughts, our ideas, our consciousness, everything is impermanent. Now, let's just say you're a little kid, right? And you have no idea, like, if this is true or not. Have you ever thought about it in reverse? Because in reverse, it actually doesn't make sense. So what am I saying? What if I told you, like, a flower, right? A flower that we see up there is permanent. You're like, wait a minute. That's not true. Like, you yourself can make the conclusion, a flower is not permanent. What if I told you your bodies are permanent? Then you'd be like, wait a minute, that's not true either, because you know you guys are constantly growing. You know that adults are constantly getting older. So it's really interesting how, like, if you like reverse this idea, you begin to see, like, oh yeah, it's actually really true. Everything in this world is impermanent, right? And to some extent, like, there's two ways you can look at this, right? You can be like really sad, like, oh my gosh, things are constantly dying all the time. Or you can take this idea with you and say, oh my gosh, because of this idea of impermanence, because things don't ever stay the way that they are, we get to learn to value things while they're still alive, right? That's basically this idea, like, hey, you guys, what are you guys in, like 5th or 6th grade or something? Or middle school, whatever. To what extent does any middle schooler, or whatever grade you're in, value that they're this young? Because if you think about it, you're never going to be this young ever again. Ever. This amount of strength and energy that you have right now, you're not going to get back as an adult, right? I know a lot of kids, like, they rush to be an adult. They want to be like, oh gosh, I can't wait to get my own job, cars, money, whatever. But when you become an adult, you regret not really enjoying your time. Like, even like, just like, the stuff that like kids do that you guys like still do, like, I don't know what you guys do, like play, like you guys have like reading time in school, or you get to play video games, or you get to like jump up and down and then it doesn't hurt your knees. Can you imagine if some of the adults around here were doing that, like just jumping up and down? Like, that's the beauty of this thing, right? It teaches you, hey, enjoy, like you understand now that your body is impermanent, that you should really enjoy it as it is right now, right? Or even like something like, I mean, it's kind of morbid, but it's like, enjoy the presence of your friends and your family, because adults know this, but I don't think kids know this. The friends that you have in middle school are not going to be the same friends that you have in high school. And when you get to high school, the same friends that you have in high school, I mean, you may keep a lot of them or a little of them, but they're not going to be the same friends that you have in college, because people always like go to different colleges. And then the same friends that you have in college are not the same friends that you have as an adult. And so they say, like, people are like seasons, like they come and go. Nothing is permanent, right? It's including your friends, including your family. They just come and go. Well, I mean, so obviously your family stays with you for a longer time, but ultimately they go as well. So what's the point? Well, the point is, first you understand this concept, and secondly, you learn, hey, this is actually a great and beautiful concept, because you get to enjoy things more. You really like touch, as this teacher says, like you get to touch reality, right? And you become more aware and more present, right? And ultimately, part of like gaining wisdom in Buddhism is learning how to be a lot more present, right? And so, let's see. Yeah. Without this idea, right? Things don't ever, like if things didn't change, then children don't ever grow up, right? And then society doesn't change, and nothing ever changes. That's actually a very type of boring life. Imagine if you like stayed in like 8th grade all your life, or 5th grade all your life. That would be horrible. There's no change, there's no evolution, right? So a lot of the time, people bemoan or they complain about the fact that, oh my gosh, I'm getting older, right? Or like things are changing constantly around me. Really, the idea of impermanence is that you embrace things. And so, I really like this statement, and I copied it word for word. It says, like, it is not impermanence that makes us suffer, rather it's wanting things to be permanent when they are really not, okay? So, yeah, I mean, that's a really, like, strong saying, like, just accept this fact, right? The more that you surrender and accept this fact that things are just, like, impermanent, then you begin to really gain more peace, confidence, and joy about the world around you, right? And really, ultimately, this concept of impermanence teaches you how to be appreciative and teaches you gratitude, right? Like, you become so much more thankful, right? And it's just like little things, like even like thankful for your health, right? Like, none of you guys are sick right now, and you feel like quite strong, quite healthy. Maybe you could be a little bit stronger, a little bit taller, but hey, like one day, maybe like 50 years from now, you're gonna be old. You're gonna have knee problems, feet problems, your back's gonna hurt, right? It's gonna happen. Whether you deny it or not, it's going to happen. But it's a matter of, well, A, not thinking about it, but B, like enjoying your current moment, your current, basically being appreciative and valuing what you have right now, right? So think, again, physically, your body's changed, your fortunes change, your situations change, right? Like, you know, what if tomorrow, like, your house burns down and then you have no place to live, right? So you start to think about everything that, like, brings you joy and gratitude, right? Things change. Okay, so that's the first idea of the Dharma seal. The second one is really interesting because they're all interconnected. But the idea about things changing, right? If you dig deeper down into, like, things change, the question is, well, why does this happen? Why do things change to begin with, right? Well, things have to change because something's happening to it, right? Maybe it's like a more complicated, for example, like, why do children grow bigger? Well, they're constantly eating, the cells are constantly dividing. Why do people get fat? Well, because they're constantly eating. Well, it's more complicated than that, but maybe something less controversial, like, how does a rock become a diamond? Well, because somebody had to, like, break the rock, drill it, and make it into a diamond, right? So the second concept that's connected to, like, impermanence of why things change is this idea of non-being. And non-being is it sounds like weirdly complicated, but it's basically saying this. It's saying that everything in this world is interconnected. Like, there's nothing that exists, like, just by itself, okay? So everything is made possible by the existence of something else that's possible. And so things don't remain the same from one moment to the next. And I mean, a really stark example of this is, let's just say you're walking, right? In the middle of the desert, and then you find yourself a watch, a golden watch, in the middle of the desert. Nobody in their right minds think, oh man, this magical watch just appeared. If you dig back, like, how did this watch appear? Well, you can dig back and say, maybe somebody dropped it. Okay, fine. But then you ask, where did this watch come from? Somebody had to assemble this watch, right? It's impossible for a watch to just appear. Like, it doesn't make sense, right? And so somebody had to come and assemble this watch, which means somebody else had to make the material for this watch, which means somebody else had to dig the material up from the earth, right? So all these things are always interconnected. So the product of just a watch by itself, it's not possible. Or just like this microphone by itself, it's not possible. Things had to have happened before it. Or even like, we could talk about this fake flower, but even a real flower. Like, how does a real flower come to be? It doesn't just pop up from the ground, right? What had to go into it? Well, it had to start from seed, and then there was water, and then there was dirt, and there was sun, and then, you know, all these, and there was oxygen, carbon dioxide, and all that stuff feeding into it that makes it grow and grow and grow. Like, nothing ever actually appears by itself. The issue is, though, that we think, and not, like, every single person, like, without this, like, level of wisdom, thinks that, oh, I am totally separate from this microphone, this table, this flower. I am not any of these things. I am me. And that's really, it's a really interesting concept, right? But if I said you and I are the same people, you'd be like, no, that's not possible. Like, you're an adult, I'm a kid. You're a man, I'm a woman, or whatever. But think about it this way. At the base level, aren't we all made out of cells? Yeah. So therefore, aren't you and I almost pretty much the same thing? What about you and this table? Clearly, you're made out of cells and this table is made out of stuff, right? So how can you be connected to this table? But if you think about it even deeper at the base level, isn't this table made out of molecules and atoms? And then you ask yourself, what are you made of? Molecules and atoms, right? So it's really interesting because it's like, this concept it's kind of really hard to grasp. It's the idea that, okay, we're all interconnected, like no matter what, like we're all made of like just atoms and molecules, right? This is what science and physics sees. Like we're all made out of matter. But somewhere along the way, our brains started to say, no, we're different, we're unique, we are actually separate from each other. And so the teacher in this book, right, he compares it to baking and flour and cookies, actually. Do you guys bake? You guys know how to bake? No? Okay. Well, you have dough, you have flour, you know, you put eggs, butter, and milk. I don't know how to bake either. So just think about the cookies that you have, right? How does it come to be? Well, first it's a big batch. They beat it up, right? And they take it off, they roll, flatten it, and make like little cookie shapes, right? And they put it on the trays, right? And then when you put it in the trays, first off, the person who's making the cookies know like, oh, all these individual cookies came from the big piece of dough, right? But imagine if you were a cookie. You would think, oh, I'm a special little cookie, right? I'm not the same as the cookie to the right of me or the cookie to the left of me. And it's fascinating because each cookie, when you're baking it, each cookie's starting to think like, oh, I want to be the best cookie in the world. I want to be the sweetest, the brownest, the crunchiest, or softest cookie, right? And they develop something called discriminative perception. Fancy word, I know, discriminative perception. But it's basically saying this. They begin to think that they are different. They begin to set barriers between them and the other cookie. Well, we know that each of the cookie came from the same piece of dough, right? So, and these cookies start competing for like beauty and color and taste or whatever, being flat, being soft. And you know what this metaphor is? Metaphor sounds a lot like us. Because what do we do? Especially when you guys are like in middle school, you start comparing yourself to kids, right? You start to say like, oh, I'm smarter, I'm prettier, I'm taller, I'm stronger, I'm faster, I'm more athletic, etc., etc. And so it's funny because we have a tendency to begin to like compare and to judge. When ultimately the idea is that we're all the same to begin with, right? And yet we're like doing that. So well, what was the point of this? The point of this second idea of interbeing is this, right? If you're able to develop the wisdom to say like, oh, I'm technically connected with this other person, right? Like I'm technically, everything is interconnected. Like I'm technically connected with every single situation, every single item, every single person. Then your brain, this is like a pathway to developing more compassion, right? And to some extent happiness. Because you have this insight that everything is like part of you, and you're part of everything. I always like reference The Matrix, but I realized like, it came out in like 2000 or something, and I'm sure most of you guys are like born after 2000. But the ending of The Matrix is really good, and if you haven't seen it, go see it. It's an old movie, I realize, like maybe 19 years old. But at the very end of this movie, Neo, this guy, right? Well, first off, just quick summary. Everybody's living in this like world where they're connected, like their brains are connected to this matrix. So they're basically like a dream machine, right? And everybody thinks it's like reality, it's real life. What they don't know is that they're all in a dream to some extent. But this main character, Neo, at the very end, he's like the chosen one. He begins to see everything and everyone as a whole, right? Or basically, to even summarize it even easier, he begins to see everybody as like molecules or atoms. Isn't that fascinating? If you can like see each other as molecules and atoms, then really you can't really discriminate, right? And so, yeah, so that's the idea, which is that if you develop this ability to see other people not as different, but as the same as you, that's the key, the pathway to developing A, compassion, and B, to some extent, happiness. Finally, quick story, Tolstoy, famous writer, he has this really interesting story about two enemies, okay? For the sake of argument, we'll call them A and B. It's really interesting story. It'll get 2 minutes. So, and here's how it goes. So, there was this person, A, who suffered a lot because of B. And he hated B, okay? And his only goal in life was to destroy B. No one knows why. A just hated B, okay? And whenever he sees or hears B, A gets really angry. I don't know, do you guys know of anybody, like maybe anybody that like angers you just a little bit or like pisses you off? Think about that person, right? Because that's the same story. You guys are A, and that's B, right? The person that you really dislike. Now, to seek help, A visited a sage, or a very wise person. And so after listening to everything that A was telling the sage about B and how much he hated this person, the sage said, okay, I got this. And he poured water on A, on his head, and said, and now, you're B. And A was shocked. A was like, how can you say that? That's the last thing I want to be. Like, I hate B. I'm A, I hate B. And then the sage was like, no, trust me, you are B now. And he takes out a mirror and shows him. And in the mirror, A sees B, right? And then A moves his hand, and B is moving his hand. And no matter what A is doing, B is doing. And so the voice and the feelings and the perceptions of A became B. And A tries to come back to himself, but realized that A is also B. Now, I don't know. This is like a rather confusing story. It's better if you read it. But it's a really interesting story. How at the beginning, A hated B, only to realize that A was B. Right? To me, this is fascinating because a lot of the times, a lot of conflicts in this world are like people hating on other people. Just like, for example, like the mass shootings that's going on, like just a lot of people hating other people. Or just like the anti-immigrant or the racist, ideology that's being spewed. What those people don't realize is that we are all interconnected, right? So why all this hate, why all this violence? And so the idea of like the conflicts in this world, like imagine if like the conflicts between Muslims and Hindus or Israelis and Palestinians, if they began to see each other as people and not as like different groups, right? And so the ultimate like wrap up is that we should be able to practice, right? Until we see that like each people is us, right? Like you guys in the crowd, you are me, and I am also to some extent you guys. We're not separate and opposing, right? But it takes a lot of practice for you to be able to arrive at this idea that, oh yeah, we are one and the same. We're all interconnected. No one is separate from each other, right? And so that's the first two of the lecture. So impermanence and interbeing, core teachings of the Buddha, right? Everything's connected and everything else is also impermanent. Okay, awesome. I'll be back next week to continue this lecture. Thank you. Bye.